Hey, what's up guys? I'm Dave Boyer, aka Mr. Boyer, aka the Swamp Man. My family's here at 6.L Island on a little quick weekend vacation during the summer. We spent the day down on the beach. It was really fun. It was a beautiful day. A storm came through this afternoon. We kind of went back to the beach house and kind of waited out the storm. I've come back down in the evening. It's a little cloudy and very windy, but really beautiful this afternoon here on the beach. So just kind of stopped here at the point where the high tide reaches, and the high tide brings a lot of seashells. So if you've been to the beach, you've probably seen seashells. You've probably collected some, put them in a trash bag or whatever and brought them back home. But you probably didn't think too much about what it is about a seashell. You know, where did they come from? How were they made? What was living inside of it? So all of the shells that wash up on the beach used to have living organisms inside of them. They can all be identified by which organisms lived inside of them. They can also be identified by things like their shape, their color, the different markings on them. There's lots of different properties about shells that can help you figure out what kind of organism may have been living in it. What I wanted to talk to you about is, where did the shell itself come from? Because they wash up on shore all the time without organisms, and people don't usually think about where they came from. So this shell that I have in my hand here that had an organism in it, the organism was producing the stuff that made the shell. It has glands. You know, humans have glands too. We have sweat glands that let sweat out. We have tear ducts in our eyes that allow tears to come out. We've got all kinds of glands that secrete different liquids or different things out of our body. Well, the organism that lived inside the shell did the same thing, and it was secreting out mostly a compound called calcium carbonate. So the calcium part of it came from the ocean. The ocean is made up of salt. If you've ever been to the ocean and been maybe washed up in the waves or something and tasted the water a little bit, it's salt water. A lot of that water is sodium chloride, which is the same as the salt that we have on our dinner table. But a lot of the water is actually a couple of other salts as well, like magnesium chloride or calcium chloride. So the organism that lived inside the shell was absorbing some calcium chloride from the water, and it used that calcium chloride and extracted the calcium from it to help make this shell. But I said the shell was made of calcium carbonate. So the carbon itself that made up this shell came from the atmosphere. The oceans are an important resource in taking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and turning it into carbonic acids that can be absorbed by organisms like the organism that lived in this shell. It can then take that carbon and combine it with the calcium that it got from the salts in the water and form and secrete out of its gland some calcium carbonate that makes its shell. So these organisms actually grow this shell, and it forms it into these hard layers. It actually is made up of a bunch of different layers. I was reading about this today in a book. And the very exterior layer, the part that we touch, is the hardest layer. And then the structure of the crystals of the calcium carbonate differentiate between different layers and give it its structure and its shape. It also has different colors and different markings on it, and that has to do with the food that the organism was eating. So it has some glands that produce pigments, and those pigments give it its color, and the colors that it produces are based on the foods that it's eating. It's really cool stuff, really complicated. I've been fascinated in the last week or so reading about shells and how they're made. You know, I grew up just kind of walking along the beach and finding some pretty shells, or trying to find shells that were complete and not broken, and I was pretty happy with that. But the more I learn about them, the more I think it's really, really cool about how a living organism makes this hard shell. Kind of like the fingernails on our body are hard. We produce that. We make that from the food and the available resources we have. The shell, the organism that lived inside this shell, makes the shell with the food and the resources that it has around it. Really cool stuff. I wanted to share it with you, tell you that science rocks. Peace.